Congressman LaSurette, thanks for joining us this week. I got a couple interesting issues we wanted to chat about. The first is the budget super committee that has been meeting. There's been this expectation all along that basically nothing would happen. And it seems like in the last few days, there's actually been some somewhat hopeful signs. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, as you know, the House is going to be done on the 13th of December. They're going home, so you have a very small window where this can take place. Most of the reports coming out of the committee are that they're working very hard on coming to a resolution of the two budget resolutions, but that it's going to be small ball, and small ball means $40 billion. And the goal of the $40 billion would be to ease some of the pain, primarily on the defense side of sequestration. And there'd also be some other programs as well. They will achieve it, and why it's kind of important is that they're going to achieve it by doubling the airport security fee from $2.50 to $5, which is obviously, it's not going to make or break people that travel, but it's a big deal to people who travel. And then if you're a federal employee, they're probably going to up the amount that they contribute to their pensions. They'll then take that revenue and then apply it to soften some of the sequestration cuts. It's not even a wave in the ocean of problems here, but because they're dealing with raising user fees, everybody in an amazing lack of leadership is able to go home, and Democrats are able to say that they got more revenue, and so to offset some spending cuts and put more money towards spending things, and Republicans are able to say they didn't raise taxes. They did raise user fees, right, but they didn't raise taxes. So I think the good news is that they will actually come to some agreement. The bad news is it really doesn't mean anything. And
does this just kick the can down the street? I mean, if this is only buying us a limited window here, are we delaying the inevitable? Are we going to have to start having these conversations
all the time? The problem is, let me say this: it's good news in that they couldn't agree what day it was before this, and so the fact that they could actually agree on something,
it's progress.
That's progress. The problem is that the other thing, and this comes about as a result of, in our other life, we're at the Main Street Partnership, and so Speaker Boehner spoke with the group. And laid out exactly what I've just said on the budget agreement, but he also talked about the fact that you're never going to get any appropriations bills. He doesn't think he can get a continuing resolution to keep the government open for a year, that it's going to have to be like 2 months or 3 months at a time. If you're in the medical business and you're a doctor, you're concerned about how much you get reimbursed through Medicare, something called SGR. They were originally talking about fixing it forever. Then they said, well, maybe we can just fix it for a year. He doesn't think they can fix it for more than 2 or 3 months. And so it's going to be this every 2 or 3 months, one of these things is going to have to be resolved. So you can be a glass half empty guy and say, I mean, we're really not fixing anything. Or a glass half full guy would say, well, at least they were agreeing on a few things, and the government's not going to shut down.
Well, speaking of the glass half full, immigration is something that we talked about a lot last year. And then essentially we got to this impasse where the Senate had passed comprehensive immigration reform with a path to citizenship, and the House said, that's not going anywhere. Right. We're willing to do something piecemeal. The president tried to pressure the House into doing something which didn't work at all. Right. And now suddenly it looks like Democrats are saying, maybe we'll take immigration by piecemeal. What does this mean?
Well, it means that you may actually in 2014 get some form of immigration reform. Comprehensive anything isn't going to happen. I mean, we know that, and so it goes to what we've talked about a lot, is the lack of trust between the two sides. And so Republicans are convinced, even though the president was trying to ramp up the pressure and some pro-immigration groups were trying to ramp up the pressure, just put the Senate bill on the floor, pass the Senate bill. Republicans in the House are convinced that if they did that, the president, because they don't trust him, would implement all the things necessary for the pathway to citizenship, but wouldn't do anything to secure our borders, which is the issue that's important to Republicans. And so as long as you have this staring contest, you're not going to get anything done. So Speaker Boehner, for ever has said, look, let's eat this elephant a few bites at a time. And now the president and also Mrs. Pelosi, the minority leader in the House, have sort of signaled that they may be open to that. If that is a sincere position on all of their parts, you could begin to get pieces such as E-Verify for employment. You could get something that the nursery and agricultural workers want in terms of seasonal workers to have a secure workforce and so on. So you could begin to pick up pieces of that and eventually get to this pathway of citizenship and secure borders. But Republicans are going to insist on borders being secure first. And as long as everybody's willing to have that conversation, who knows? Maybe they could get it done.
Well, one of my questions would be, doesn't it make it harder to get to the pathway to citizenship if some of the easy carrots in this carrots and sticks are given away piecemeal? I mean, if everybody's for E-Verify, everybody's for the highly skilled worker visas, everybody's for the seasonal agricultural workers. If that stuff's off the table and the only things that are left are these really thorny issues, does it make getting those thorny issues through even more difficult?
You can make that argument. I don't necessarily think so. I mean, they're always going to be difficult. But again, there has to be this trust, and so doing it piecemeal is all about reestablishing trust, and the belief that okay, if we sort of hold hands and jump off the pathway to citizenship bridge together, you're going to give me what I need as well, and so I don't think it's a bad idea. But even if the situation that you laid out was correct. It's still better because you'd have 6 or 7 decent reforms that everybody could agree on, and so the whole thing wouldn't be left to, if you don't have a big deal, you got nothing at all.
Excellent point. Last thing I want to talk about is the talk about proposed changes in the tax regulations as they regard 501c4 charities. There was a lot of talk about this, particularly in the IRS treatment of Tea Party groups and conservative groups, and the pushback from Democrats was these people have 501c4 status and they're not charitable groups, and sounds like the administration and Democrats on the Hill are interested in actually changing those regulations now. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, this isn't exactly an outgrowth of the outrage that came up when the IRS office in Cincinnati was investigating Tea Party applicants for 501c4 status. And there's a big hue and cry. Well, now that hue and cry is dialed down, now you have the White House and their allies saying, you know what, they shouldn't even have tax-exempt 501c4 status because they're engaged in political activity. The proposal is to modify and restrict the amount of non-charitable activity that 501c4s can engage in. And if there is however they define a political component to it, that they not enjoy that status. That's going to be a big deal. And at the moment it's being cast as a Democratic push, a White House push against organizations like Karl Rove's Crossroads GPS. But there are a ton of 501c4s in the Democratic side of the aisle as well.
Absolutely.
And so either there's going to have to be a ceasefire where everybody says, okay, we're not going to do it this way anymore, or if they try and shoehorn something in, it's going to affect a lot of different organizations.
Well, we'll definitely keep our eye on that. Once again, thank you for joining us this week, Congressman.
Thank you.